3.7 is officially here, and so is the first half alongside the brand new character Cyrene. In this video, I'm taking you over everything you need to know in order to understand and use her, including her kit and eidolons, best Lightcones, best relic sets and ornaments, the relic stats for main stats and substats, and then some team building ideas. There's going to be a lot to cover in this video, especially because she has a longer kit, so pray for your friendly neighborhood Star player, as I'm going to quite literally take you over everything. Anyway, let's get into it. Starting it off with her kit, so she is a Ice Remembrance character whose basic attack will allow her to gain a recollection point and deal ice damage based off her max HP to a designated enemy. Her skill will first allow her to gain 3 recollection points and then deploy a zone for 2 turns. While the zone is active, for each instance of damage dealt by allied targets, it will additionally deal an instance of true damage equal to 24% of the original damage. Her ultimate will summon her Memosprite and cause it to immediately gain an extra turn, activates all teammates' ultimates, and then enters the Ripples of Past Reverie state. In that state, her basic attack will become an enhanced basic attack, so it will be enhanced to Love and Tomorrow, and you will only be able to use that basic attack. So now, within that ultimate, when you have it active, you can no longer use skill. It will also increase Cyrene's and the Memosprite's crit rate by 50% and deploy the zone effect from the skill with no active duration, pretty much meaning it's going to be active forever. Can only be used once per combat. The Memosprite's initial max HP is equal to 100% of Cyrene's max HP. Her talent for when combat begins or after Cyrene takes action, other allied characters under any state and their Memosprites gain future. When allied targets act, if they do have future, they will consume that future stack to give Cyrene a recollection point. Reaching 24 recollection will allow her to use ultimate. And also, all debuffs on her will be dispelled. When she has 12 recollection points while in the Ripples of Past Reverie state, her ultimate can be activated. After reaching the maximum recollection points, you can overflow it to a maximum of 27, meaning 3 extra points you can get total. And anytime Cyrene is on the field, she will increase damage dealt by all allies by 20%. To first specify what that did mean, when you are in the actual ultimate, the first cost of it is going to take 24 for you to reach. When you reach 24 for the first time in battle, you will be able to use her ultimate. Once you use it, it's going to activate everyone's ultimate. You're going to be able to buff who you want to choose. And every time thereafter, it will take you a total of 12 rather than 24. But of course, you're not going to be able to activate everyone's ultimate again. It's only a one-time thing. Her enhanced basic attack will grant her 3 recollection points and deal ice damage based off her max HP to a designated enemy and ice damage based off her max HP to all enemies. And the enhanced basic attack cannot recover skill points. Her technique creates a special dimension for 30 seconds around the character. Enemies in that dimension will enter this moment forever state. While in the state, enemies will cease all actions. Allied characters in the dimension have 50% increase in movement speed, so similar to someone like Cypher and Xyla. After entering combat, you deploy the skill zone, so a free skill usage at the start of the battle. For the Memosprite details, the attack, which is fully AoE, will deal ice damage to all enemies based off the Memosprite's max HP. The Memosprite's talent is that its speed will remain 0 and will not appear in the action order, and is also considered out of bounds, so technically it's not there, but it is there at the same time. Changes occurring on Cyrene's max HP also do reflect on the Memosprite. When the Memosprite is on the field, Cyrene and the Memosprite's max HP is increased by 24%. After using abilities, all continuous effects duration on this unit decrease by 1. Now this is where your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man has to lock in to explain all this. Cyrene has a unique thing called This Ode to All Lives. This is an exclusive thing to her where she is able to grant different Chrysos heirs different kind of buffs depending on who you select. If you don't know what a Chrysos heir is, it's pretty much the heirs of Amphoreus. Aglia, Anaxa, Castris, Maide, so on. So the one I'm going to put up here applies a buff to a designated allied character. If they are a Chrysos heir, they gain a special effect. And if they're not, they just gain a 40% increase to damage dealt for 2 turns and applies the Memosprite. So the actual buff itself, if you're on a non-Memosprite, isn't really that good. Now I'm going to take you over every single buff for a Chrysos heir, and so every buff there is. Using it on the Trailblazer, Remembrance will increase its attack by 16% of the Memosprite's max HP, and crit rate equal to 72% of the Memosprite's crit rate. Effect applies to Mem. After Trailblazer uses enhanced basic attack in the battle, which is brand new to this update, Memosprite gains an extra turn immediately and automatically uses the attack that we talked earlier. Also, I'm not going to mention it every single time just because to speed up some process of this. You can see when I put it up on the screen if it's a one-time effect or something that's active throughout the battle. For Aglia, it will cause her to gain the Romantic effect, which will immediately stack Garment Maker's Memosprite talent speed boost to the max. After Aglia or Garment Maker attacks, it will consume Romantic to regenerate 70 energy, increase damage dealt by Aglia and Garment Maker by 72%, and ignore 36% of the target's defense until Aglia exits the Supreme Stand state. For Tribi, it allows Tribi to ignore 12% of the enemy target's defense when dealing damage, and will allow her to deal an additional instance of additional damage when she does trigger the additional damage in her zone. Made will be able to remove all crowd control debuffs inflicted on him. If he's in Vendetta, he automatically will use an instance of Godslayer be God, and for that attack, the crit damage of Made is increased by 200%. If he is not in Vendetta when you use the buff on him, instead it will action advance him by 100%. For Castress, it will allow her new blood points to actually overflow up to 200%. When you summon Netherwing, it will consume all overflowed new blood, so it's not something you stack, it's just something that's consumed. And the damage multiplier of the damage dealt increases by 0.24% for every 1% of overflow value consumed when the summoned Netherwing triggers the ability of its effect, Wing Sweeps the Runes. If there's 2 or fewer enemies on the field, instead the damage multiplier will additionally be increased by 0.48% when summoning. For Anaxa, when you use it on him, it will recover a skill point for the team and allows Anaxa to immediately take action. It increases the instances of his skill damage by 3 for that one turn, and the next time Anaxa uses his basic attack or skill, he gains a True Knowledge buff, which increases the attack of all Erudition characters on the team by 60% and skill damage by 40% until the next turn of Anaxa. For Hyacine, when the Memosprite uses a Memosprite skill, Hyacine will gain 2 stacks of Ode to Sky, and also when used on her, she regenerates 24 energy. When Hyacine has Ode to Sky, additionally increases the healing value for Little Eco's Memosprite skill by an amount equal to 72% of healing value this time. And when Hyacine uses skill or ultimate, it consumes a stack of Ode to Sky. I'm already getting tired of talking about this, but anyway, for Cypher, using it on her will increase her damage dealt by 36%, decreases the defense of Patron by 20%, and defense of enemy targets other than Patron by 12%. For Phynon, it will immediately grant him 6 Core Flames and Internal Ignition. When you transform, for any points you had of Core Flame that exceed 12, you are able to increase Kazlana's crit damage by 12% up to 72%. When you do have Internal Ignition, Kazlana's crit rate increases by 16%. When all your extra turns in Kazlana end, the transformation won't actually end, you'll still proc the final hit, but it won't end. It will refresh all the extra turns for Kazlana, and you will gain 4 points of Scourge. At the start of his extra turns, he will consume an amount of HP equal to 15% of his max HP when he does use an attack, and when using an attack, it does deal 5 instances of additional damage, with each instance dealing fire damage equal to 10% of his attack to one random enemy. For Hycelene's, it will give her the Flowing Warmth effect, where after she uses an attack, she will consume it to regenerate 60 energy, and in the battle will increase the damage dealt by her by 120%. After using basic attack or skill to attack enemy targets, it will cause all the dots applied on the enemies currently to immediately produce damage equal to 60%/80% of the original damage. For Ceridra, when you use it on her, it will increase the crit damage of the character that has military merit by 30%, and after Kudeman ends, Ceridra immediately gains a point of charge. For Evernight, it will increase the damage dealt when Eevee uses the Memosprite skill, Dream Dissolving as due by 18%. After Memosprite uses skill or ultimate, additionally gains 1 Memoria point. The crit damage boost provided by the skill is further increased by an amount equal to 12% of Evernight's crit damage. And for Danheng, when using the Memosprite skill from Cyrene, grants Ode to Earth to Danheng, and the next 3 attacks of Soul Dragon additionally deal damage based off the Bondmate's type, equal to 80% of Bondmate's shield effect. When Danheng holds Ode to Earth, the Bondmate deals 24% increased damage. When used on Danheng, additionally advances the Soul Dragon's action by 100%. The Soul Dragon's next action gains the enhanced effects of Danheng's ultimate, and the shield effect provided by Soul Dragon is 150% of the original shield effect, and it also does not consume the enhancement charge of Danheng's ultimate. And when you actually use the attack from Cyrene, after she gains recollection from each different teammate, other than her own Memosprite, when Memosprite uses the attack we talked about before all the buffs, it additionally deals an instance of ice damage equal to 60% of the Memosprite's max HP to a random enemy. After Cyrene uses her ultimate or when the Memosprite is summoned, the Memosprite immediately gains a story. Reaching 3 points of story will make the Memosprite consume it all to immediately gain an extra turn and launch the attack. Oh my god, we're finally done. Now talking about her bonus traces. Her A2, when a teammate's Memosprite is summoned, it will gain Future, and Future held by Memosprites no longer can be consumed, so the actual people that hold Consume still will consume the stack, and Cyrene has to act to refresh it, but for Memosprites, they will just have it forever. Her A4, for when there are 1/2/3 Chrysos Heirs or Remembrance Path characters on the team aside from Cyrene. Cyrene will additionally gain 2/3/6 Recollection points respectively at the start of combat. And her A6, when Cyrene's speed is 180 or higher, everyone on the team's damage dealt increases by 20%. Then for each point of speed exceeding 180, it will increase Cyrene's and the Memosprite's Ice Res pen by 2%, counting up to a maximum of 60 exceeded points. And finally, for her Eidolons. For E1, when the Memosprite triggers the Memosprite skill Ode to Blank, while using the attack of the Memosprite, gains 6 recollection points and increases the number of bounces for the attack by 12. Her E2 allows her to immediately gain 12 recollection points entering combat. For each different character that gains the Memosprite skill buff from the Memosprite, so when you select them when you use ultimate, the damage multiplier of the true damage dealt by ally targets from the skill zone will increase by 6% up to a maximum of 24%. So you can actually get up to a 48% increase to true damage. For E4, each time after the Memosprite uses its attack, the bounce damage multiplier of the triggered Memosprite skill, Ode to Blank, increases by 6% in the current battle and stacks up to 24 times. And her E6, when Cyrene uses her ultimate for the first time, all allies' actions are advanced by 100%. Each time the Memosprite triggers the Memosprite skill Ode to Blank and uses the attack, based on the number of times it has been triggered, gains the following effects. One time will be for when the Memosprite is on the field, all enemies' defense will be reduced by 20%, and 2 times or more will action advance all allies by 24%. Jesus, we're finally done. So you can see she is a Chrysos Heir buffer mainly because her value outside of it is relatively on the weaker side since her buffs aren't super good. So you mainly do use her with Chrysos Heirs or Remembrance characters because they will further help her get ultimate and can also help her start with more ultimate unless you have E2, but even combined with E2 it makes it better. Anyway, let's move on to Lightcones finally. For Lightcones, she unfortunately isn't working with too many options when it comes to usage-wise, but overall her best in slot is going to be her own signature Lightcone, providing the wearer 18% increase to speed. When the wearer's Memosprite uses a Memosprite skill on an ally, gains Blank, which will increase the damage enemies take by 10%. When the wearer's Memosprite uses the Memosprite skill on an enemy target, gains Verse, which will increase the crit damage of all allies by 16%, and when the wearer's Memosprite has both Blank and Verse, increases both effects of Blank and Verse by 60%. 18% speed is going to be really good as it does help your Cyrene get close to the 180 goal, and she's able to make full use of Blank and Verse as she is able to use her Memosprite skill to select an ally for a buff, and also the big arrow shot for the attack, so you can get both effects, and having both of them gives you a 60% increase to both. So a lot of crit damage for your team and a lot of vulnerability for the team as well. The moment you get the all out, you can just stack this up fully, so the moment you get the first ult, this whole Lightcone is going to be fully stacked. Vulnerability is going to be universally good, the crit damage, every team she is on is going to be good, and again, the speed increase is very good, making this a really good option to use. Another really good option is Hyacinth's signature Lightcone, which also provides 18% increase to the wearer's speed. When the wearer uses basic attack, skill, or ultimate, consumes all allies' HP equal to 1% of their current HP, and after the next attack of the wearer's Memosprite, enables it to additionally deal an instance of additional damage equal to 250% of the total consumed HP to the attack target, with the damage type being based on the Memosprite's type. Then the total HP consumed is reset, and when the wearer's Memosprite uses a Memosprite skill, increases the damage taken by all enemies by 18% for 2 turns, and the effects of the same type cannot stack. Once again, the increased speed is going to be really helpful for when it comes to building your Cyrene, especially if you're not running 2-piece speed sets. Now, when you are using basic attack, skill, or ultimate, you consume HP, and the next time the Memosprite attacks, which you do have an attack for the skill, you can do more damage. The HP drain itself can be really good on casters teams and Evernight teams, where she's really good at, and to top it all off with some extra vulnerability to make enemies take universally more damage is also going to be good. So she is able to utilize this Lightcone very well, which is why it's another really good option to use that's not much worse than her signature actually, and can honestly be better in some cases. The Herder Shop Lightcone also is very good on her, providing 6% speed for the wearer, and after the wearer uses skill, increases the damage dealt for all allies by 8% for 3 turns, and at S5 it's 12% speed with 16% increase the damage dealt. Once again, the speed increase is going to be really good. Only thing that's a little bit of a problem with the actual second part of the the actual Lightcone with a damage dealt increase for your team. If you remember, when you do use your ultimate, you no longer will actually have the availability to use skill. So when you do use your skill and you go into ultimate, that will be the last time you have this damage dealt buff, and after 3 turns it will be gone for the rest of the battle. If you're able to kill within the 3 turns, then obviously it's not going to be a problem at all. It's going to stay active and it's going to have decent uptime. But since Cyrene is fast, she can expire pretty quickly. So that is something you definitely want to take note of. Otherwise, it's a really solid option to use. You can also use Victory in a blink, which will increase the wearer's crit damage by 12%. When the wearer's Memosprite uses an ability on an allied target, increases the damage dealt by all allied targets for 8% for 3 turns. And at S5, it's 24% crit damage with 16% increase the damage dealt for everyone. Crit damage is just going to be nice for her own personal damage if you care about that. Anytime you crit, you'll do more damage. Her Memosprite is able to use that ability on an allied target, as that is the buffing portion, so everyone will gain a 16% increase to damage dealt that you can actually refresh. Same amount as the actual Herder Shop Lightcone, it just doesn't give speed, so that's why it has less value unless you already have a lot of speed. So if you have none of the other options, this is a option you would use. Now for relic sets, so there are 2 options you can actually do, and this really depends on what you want to do and what your goals are, and also if you have the Lightcone or not that gives speed. If you don't, then it changes. As we do know, in our base kit, it did state you want to reach 180 speed, and what can help with that is 2-piece speed and 2-piece speed, so running 2-piece warrior goddess with 2-piece relieved ordeal and also 2-piece hacker space, one of those 3 as a mix and match, it can actually work. But if you already reach 180 speed with the 4-piece, her best in slot is going to be World Remaking Deliverer. 8% crit rate from the 2-piece, and the 4-piece after the wearer uses basic attack or skill if the wearer's Memosprite is on the field, increases max HP of the wearer and their Memosprite by 24%, and increases all allies damage dealt by 15%, lasting until after the wearer's next use of basic attack or skill. Crit rate helps you get closer to 100%, which is going to be great, especially since her actual attack does deal multiple hits, so getting them the crit will be best for damage. 4-piece will provide Cyrene 24% max HP increase, so her and the Memosprite will deal more damage. And the increased damage dealt is going to further amplify her supportive role, so everyone on the team just gets 15% more damage. So she can utilize this very well, as it's good for her own damage and also great for your team. So if you are able to reach 180 plus speed with the World Remaking Deliverer set, you can very much run that instead. Another benefit of 2-piece speed and 2-piece speed though is it lets you get closer to 200 speed. If you don't know why 200 speed is good, 1, it's going to increase the ice res pen she gets, so technically more damage. 2, it's because reaching 200 speed is going to allow her to get 3 turns within a cycle, which is especially going to be great for people with something like E0 on a slower charge team, since getting that 1 extra turn in that first cycle of MLC is going to be great for getting her ultimate. So that's another benefit of 2-piece speed and 2-piece speed. If you aren't able to reach 200 speed even with that, and you still just get a 180 speed build with World Remaking Deliverer, again, that's our best in slot 4-piece. 2-piece speed and 2-piece speed is for the people who want to either get as much speed as possible, or the people who struggle to reach 180 since maybe they don't have a Lightcone with speed on her, or they just have really bad rolls. That's kind of how you want to go about it. For ornaments, there's really only 2 options you want to use. This can kind of change, but the overall better one is going to be Amphoria's set, which will provide the wearer a 8% increase to crit rate, and while the wearer's Memosprite is on the field, it will increase all allies' speed by 8%, and the effect cannot be stacked. 8% crit rate is just going to be good to get closer to 100% crit rate if you care about her damage. 8% speed is going to be really good for not only herself, but if Hyacinth's on the team, it's going to be great for her, and any character that would like some speed increases, help you hit more breakpoints and such as well. And of course, it applies to Cyrene, so that's going to be good for her too. Only downside of this actual set is it's going to have to wait till you get your first ultimate, so it can take a bit to actually get that 8% speed, so keep that in mind. You're going to need to ult to get the Memosprite on the speed, so keep that in mind when you are using this. It might take a little bit to get the 8% speed buff, but otherwise it is really good. Another option is actually Von Walk. Energy regen is useless on her, but when the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher, the wearer's action is advanced forward by 40% immediately upon entering battle. What makes that really good is it actually allows you to get 3 turns within the first cycle without actually reaching the 200 speed. So if you're only able to hit 180 and not 200 speed, running this will make you still get 3 turns within the first cycle. And it'll also practically make it to where she gets to act quickly, so you get to immediately use the skill and start your gen really quickly. This would be more apparent with E2, but if you had E2, you'd have less reason to run this. But because it actually allows you to get that extra turn in the cycle is what makes it really, really valuable. For the main stats on the relics, for the body, you can run crit damage if you care about her damage more, HP percent if you want her to generate more points for new, but for Chrysos mainly. For the feet, you want to run speed. For the orb, you can run, again, ice damage for her damage, or HP percent for Chrysos new bud. And for the rope, you want HP percent. For the substats, first prioritize getting speed. 180 is going to be your goal to activate her actual trace. Once you have enough there, you will be good to go. If you want to get it to 200 for 3 turns within the first cycle, that is entirely up to you. It's going to be really good, so I personally recommend it. Once you do reach that, it's focusing on mainly just crit rate, crit damage, and HP percent. More HP is good. For crit rate, just try to get it to as close as 100% as possible. She does give herself 50%. Base crit rate is 5%, and then you also have sets such as World Remaking Deliver if you're running that. And Furious gives 8% as well, so account for all those and just try to get 100% in battle. And then for crit damage, get as much as you can. I'm not joking, you can really just get as much as you can. If you care more about her damage, you want to focus on it more. Same thing with HP percent, really just get as much as you can. HP percent becomes more priority than crit damage if you're running her with Chrysos and you wanted to generate more new blood. But if you care about her damage more, then crit damage has more priority. But HP percent is still good. Now for team building. So as she does really work with Chrysos Heir DPSs, it kind of would vary on what you have on your account. Her best team is going to be with the Remembrance Chrysos Heir, so one of the best ones is going to be Chrysos, of course. So Chrysos would be on the team, Evernight would be on the team as well, so it would look like this. Last slot would go to Hyacinth, so if you have Hyacinth, you could put her here, and this is the best team Cyrene can be on. It's the absolute best one where she works the best, and she's also the best on. She's also really good for running Evernight Hypercarry, so if you don't have Chrysos on the team, you can sub her out for RMC, and also vice versa. If you don't have Evernight, you can be running Chrysos instead, and it would be something like this. And of course, if you don't have Hyacinth, just sub out for your best sustain. Link Shell works. You can use Luotra, you can use Huohuo, you can use Gallagher. It really just depends on who your best sustain is in that slot. For HP drainers though, of course, you want to run healers. But she isn't just restricted to these teams. Like, you could also run her on an Anaxa Hypercarry team. And with Anaxa, she kind of functions as a replacement for Sunday, as she gives Anaxa another turn. So you would run these two together. The next slot would be Saridra, and then the last slot would be sustain, or if you're doing sustainless, someone else. Hyacinth helps a lot on Cyrene's teams, since she is a Remembrance character and also a Chrysos Heir and also has a Memosprite. She can help charge up Cyrene a lot more, and so she actually gets a lot more value as being a sustain on this team and any other team in general. It's the same thing for running a Hypercarry in Maide, but we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, if you don't have Saridra, again, you could sub out for anyone on the team to be helping. You can even run someone like RMC, Rod May, whatever you have for that slot. And if you're running sustainless, again, you could change out Hyacinth for one of the supports. Again, be it Rod May, be it RMC, be it Cypher even, and so on. Cypher has a lot of value too for being a Chrysos Heir that slots in teams very well. Same thing with Chibi for being a buffer. And then for a Hypercarry Maide team, you would obviously give this slot to Maide, so he's the primary focus here. Hyacinth, with her Lightcone especially, is going to be really good for him on this team because mainly it charges up Cyrene. That's the main thing. Previously, you wouldn't use her too much with Maide, but now you would for this team. Last slot could go to whatever support you want. You could use Tribi, you could use Cypher again. You can even honestly run Saridra for the actual Tripper Godslayer setup, where you make sure her charge and her Kudemon procs when Maide gets his Godslayer, and then you proc the actual, Cyrene buff on Maide, and you get 3 Godslayers. That works, but otherwise you can just run Tribi again, Cypher, you can run Ron May, RMC, so on. But that's kind of how you want to go about it. Again, she works with Chrysos Heirs. Don't try to slot her into other teams. She's not going to work good. You mainly want to mix and match it with your Chrysos Heir teams. And that is it for the full Cyrene guide. I do hope you found this video helpful. If you did, dropping a like would be greatly appreciated. If you're new to the channel or haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe or turn on the bell icon for future videos like this for more Star Roll content. And I'll see you later as I dramatically take off these headphones because the city needs me.